Hello everybody, my name is Mod and welcome back to our survival world. Now in the last couple of videos, we've actually worked a lot on this sort of area of the world, and that's exactly what we're going to continue doing in this episode. Now for a little while I was debating whether or not I wanted to continue on the city project here, maybe push it back, and continue with our terraforming over here, or if maybe we ought to just push back our terrain over here and continue on with our landscaping. And I think that that's exactly what we're going to do. Now for a while on my Discord and on some community posts, I've teased this sort of area over here where we're going to have a really big project coming up soon, but in preparation for that, we're going to have to continue to do some medium-sized projects, I would say, at least terraforming wise, and we're going to push this all the way back almost to this natural mountain over here. Now a couple of videos ago, I went ahead and built this lake over this actual natural lake, but I figured I wouldn't really have to let it up too much since there wouldn't be too many mobs as there's a bunch of water underneath here. But if we turn off our shaders here, we can see in areas like this, there are a whole bunch of different mobs. So to remedy this, I think maybe we don't have to clear out the forest, but at least we should put a whole bunch of torches down in this area. Now in preparation for this, as you can see, we have a whole big dirt farm right here. And I will say this thing chews through bone meal like it's nothing. In preparation for this video, I've already gotten a whole bunch of dirt, maybe 50 or 60 shulker boxes worth, all sort of stored down that way. And I'm not sure if these, yeah, a lot of these are still sort of full down here. But I haven't actually collected some of the dirt from up here as well. So yeah, looking at these chests, you can see we have a huge amount of dirt. Now I know that there are definitely ways to make this a little bit more efficient, maybe adding a shulker loader into the bottom here so that we don't have to worry too much about the storage space, and then also making a bone meal farm and sort of connecting that up here. I think that'll be something that we maybe do in the future just to make this thing as efficient as possible and squeeze out every piece of dirt that we can. But for now, I'd say it's acceptable. And also, since we're over here, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what I built in the end really quick. It's something that I worked on last episode actually, but didn't get a chance to show off on cam, so let's go all the way down here. And you can see I don't actually have a proper way to get up and down. I just kind of fly in and out, and now it may not be very obvious as to what I'm talking about in the end, but if we fly all the way over this way, we have a whole shulker farm over here, so we really never have to worry about getting shulker boxes again, which is a huge relief. So we have a whole bunch of shulker boxes in here, and pretty much all of them are filled up with dirt. Some of them are filled up with wood since that dirt farm also produces a bunch of spruce wood and a little bit of cobblestone. But this is pretty much where the magic is going to happen and what I'm going to use to totally transform that whole area. There's also a couple of small things that I'd like to include, maybe adding a house over here. So I've already made a small clearing on this side. And then I also had a couple of comments suggest that I make some sort of dock or boating area so that we could have some different sailboats in here and small vessels. I'm not totally sure if I'll continue with that, but we'll see where it takes me. Now I don't want to get too sidetracked with talking, so let's go ahead and start a time lapse, and I'll see you whenever. Okay, you guys, turning around, you can see we've made a whole bunch of progress, and I don't want to get too excited over the progress we've made, even though it is very exciting. I wanted to slow down for a second because Obviously, this is all very big and cool, but I feel like it's not going to mean anything if we don't, occupy it. So what I would like to do is, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but this whole area is kind of cleared out, and that's for a reason. And I felt like something should go here, maybe some sort of house, even like a tackle shop, something small, just on the water here, and that has a real purpose looking into the city like this. Now that's one thing, but there's also a lot of real estate down on this side that I would also like to sort of have occupied. Now that's kind of up in the air. I was thinking that we do some sort of like boat shop. I think a couple of people not only had recommended it in the comments, but in a past live stream had also recommended maybe we should add some sort of little sailboat club or something like that. So maybe we'd have even like a kayak holding area down this way. And now that we have all of this sort of, I guess, halfway built, I want to say, it's going to be too much to really fill everything up with leaves and trees and whatnot. But I was thinking we'd have sort of patchy areas where we could have different places. Maybe one area could be sort of like a nice compound where we have some royalty living or like a very established family of some sort. And then another area could be a little bit more run down. Maybe have some abandoned homes even, or just, some beautiful forests and small patches of trees. Now, all that is great, but I think the main thing that's really going to make this place stand out is going to be the paths and how you follow them and how they feel when you're walking through them, and just being able to sort of see, some of the scenery down this way and the rest of the world, of course. Now I'm thinking I want to keep incorporating the dirt path blocks all the way along here, and I think I'll replace the grass like this, but we have a good little template as to what we'll do, and this is going to lead all the way down here. I wanted to extend not just the end of this area, but all the way through to another entire project that I had planned way down in the future. And looking at all this, it is really a shame that we're kind of covering it up, because I could just imagine such a beautiful scene here, maybe some buildings on one side and the other. But honestly, I think the things that we're going to build now are even greater. And plus, we have other places like down here, which serve as a good opportunity to maybe build something. And it's pretty wild to think that we've built all the way down to our local woodland mansion that I remember when we first made the world, I thought was a million blocks away. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and collect a couple of unique blocks. Let's get a couple of these structures built up, some more detailing done, since I feel it'll be a nice break from placing thousands and thousands and thousands of blocks. What a nice time in our simple lake, looking at our nice boat shack here. And I actually did an interior for it. What a surprise. Now I've also done the house over by that shrine down there, which we'll show off in just a minute. But I want to go take a look at this first. So you get quite a nice view from the shore here. You have some nice, cherry blossom leaves falling down. And actually, now that I think of it, I probably should have put some cherry blossom petals down here, which I can do in just a minute. But in the meantime, let's go check out what we've done. So this is actually the first time that I've used pale moss blocks, and really tried to go with the more mundane looking and sort of less colored color palette. And I initially wanted to use the copper up here, these copper slabs. I intended for them to be like weathered, so they'd have a little bit more green to them and less of a bluish tone, since I figured that might complement this sort of wall more, the texture that we've gone for. But overall, I think it's okay, and we can always replace it too, so it's not a big deal. Now, stepping on inside, the sort of goal you can see with this is to sort of have a storage unit with a couple of kayaks. I guess they'd be on this side, and then I even made like a little contraption here. It doesn't really do anything, of course, but in practice, you kind of have to use your imagination. You can see like the chains here kind of would cycle through each kayak and whatnot, and then you could pick the one that you wanted, whatever, maybe it needs repairs or something, and then you could kind of slide it out into the water here. And there's even a small dock, so you have a little bit of light at nighttime, or you could go fishing like this in here and get a beautiful view of everything around you. Now, I'm sure you can kind of get an idea as to how old this place is, as there's a whole bunch of little vines growing, and it's not super well kept compared to some of the other builds that we've had. Now, I've sort of started to lay out a path here with this coarse dirt to sort of lead all the way down this way and connect up here. And in order to do that, we'll of course get rid of this area, but I also want to decorate the sides here with a whole bunch of trees and forests and a lot of detail, just so that, you know, when you're looking out at the lake, you can really get immersed into the world. So coming down our path here, past our shrine, there's going to be a house right over here. Now, this isn't necessarily a house per se, but it's more of like a fishing shop, or someplace you can get gear, rent gear, something like that, and go along the edge of the coast here and do some fishing. But getting back to it, you can see the exterior. It looks pretty worn and weathered down. Like, you can see some of the moss here growing, and inside it looks pretty lively, especially at nighttime, which I might be able to show off later. But coming on inside here, you can see it's pretty cozy. It's more of like a general storage place, and you can get some gear from here. And I was thinking about adding a ladder up here, but there's nothing up here quite yet, so maybe that could be a place where we could store fishing rods, or just, you know, have more general storage. But yeah, that's what we've really worked on the last, I don't know, day or so. It's nothing crazy, but what that does mean is that we'll be able to sort of extend this back to where we initially wanted to. So let's get back to work, go on a super duper big time-lapse mode, and let's try to finish up this whole area right here. Okay, we are finally back. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that I can update you on. Of course, you just saw we have our landscape. It's been a while for me. I want to say this is like the second day I've been collecting leaves, and we're pretty much all set. And for now, this is where I'm keeping them. We've got a whole bunch of them in here, so we got a whole bunch of cherry blossom trees, and then we've got a whole bunch of wood as well. And the rest of these are all filled with oak leaves and some with spruce leaves on top of that. It's safe to say we have tens of thousands of leaves. We'll be able to make a whole bunch of progress here. And another little thing that I've done in the meantime while I've been off camera is that I just traveled a good 20, no, maybe even 30,000 blocks back and forth just to grab a whole bunch of these tall grass and short dry grass blocks, and even a couple of the cactus flowers, which I haven't used before. Now, from my understanding, the cactus flowers are a little bit difficult to farm, but these ones should be no problem. And before that, I went all the way down that way as well, where I could find the new bush variants. So we've got a whole bunch of that now, especially our firefly bushes, which I actually made a farm for down here. And before I get too ahead of myself, this is like a flower shop, so I figured it was only natural for flower farms to be down here, and I think I'd like to decorate down here as well. It would look really pretty if I had like a basement with a couple of different cozy looking farms down here. That'll sort of all be for when we go ahead and really detail the place, when we've actually like built all of our custom trees, but there's really only one thing left to do. So let's go ahead and get all our materials ready and let's build. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Now I have to say that I think that this was definitely the most amount of trees I've put in one session. I was clicking for way too long, but now that it's over, I think it was well worth it. I'm really excited to actually get this whole place decorated and get all the foliage really popping and show everything off properly. So right now, as you can see, that this path here is just kind of mundane. It's kind of lackluster, honestly. And I kind of want to turn it into something more like we have in the city on this side. And I'll show you in just a second what I mean. Just like this. So we'll have a bit more texture to it. Of course, the grass helps a little bit, but we'll have like the path blocks here. And I still have to do things like add like the slabbing here to make it a little bit more subtle as it rises up. You don't have to just jump up a full block. But that's one thing. And then the other thing is I want to make sure the pathing is a little bit more distinct, I think is the word I'm looking for. And to do that, I think maybe having, you know, little bits of stone on either side, sort of directing you as to where to go. Landmarks too, maybe I could add like a small structure here, a small structure there, just making the place feel a little bit more alive. Now, of course, the trees help, and adding things like fallen leaf petals here on the floor will make things really seem genuine and a little bit less like an open field with some trees on it. And there's always the off chance maybe I'll add some a little bit of farmland or something. And actually, I need to get rid of a couple of stray blocks like over here. I think an Enderman moved this block. Let's get started on that. I'll see you in another time lapse, I guess, and we'll talk soon. Well, I am finally done, for now at least, with the decoration and sort of fluffification. I don't know. What is a good word for that? Of course, fluffification is something I just made up. But as you can see, we did a whole bunch of detailing with all the plants and the ferns and the blah, blah, blah. And even some of these little dangly bits on the cherry blossom trees, which I thought looked kind of cool, you know, as like little stringy leaves and whatnot that you might find. I don't really know. But man, yeah, like look at this shot. This is nice, right? Don't you think? This is relaxing, I think. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I wanted to show this area off in a real dignified way instead of me just sort of gawking at different angles. And anyway, now this is really apparent in the sort of montagey time lapse that I showed you guys, but I added these little walls on the side, and I think that they really like distinguish the path a lot. Like I was kind of talking about earlier on in the video about what I wanted to do. And then this pathing pattern also, I had carry on around the whole thing, as you saw. And another little detail I added were these rocks here. Now, I wasn't too sure about how they turn out, but I think they turned out okay. A couple of things that I might do differently next time is just kind of like make the surrounding areas kind of a similar texture to this, just so it makes a bit more sense. And I think that there's actually, I think there's something in here. Yep, hello. I'm just gonna leave that there for now. But anyway, like I was saying, I think if we add sort of like a nice texture area similar to this texture, just in the surrounding places, which I can actually replace pretty soon, that'll really help kind of pop out a bit more or make it not pop out so much, I guess make it more natural looking. But I'm excited to see how this looks at nighttime. With all these firefly bushes, I bet it'll look pretty magical. Now, while the sun is setting, and I'll be able to show you the firefly bushes in just a moment, there's a couple of like clearings over here, and of course this big old field right here, which I don't necessarily have any plans for yet. But over here, I do have quite a few plans for. So I'm thinking that I'll have some sort of compound right around here, and you can kind of like come across the path this way, which I'll leave an opening to, of course, where you'll have like a nice entrance here with beautiful views in the background, beautiful views over here and over here. And then behind the compound, I really want to add some sort of really dense, sort of beautiful forest, and it's really getting dark. Now this section is actually a little bit easier to show without shaders just because it's so unbelievably dark with shaders on, but look at that, that's quite nice, right? Now you'll also notice there's a big mob problem, and that's kind of going to stay the same for the most part in the field at least. Now like I was saying, I have a couple of these walls here, some trapdoors and chains and whatnot, and I'm sure you can see where this is going, but the whole idea of course is that we're going to kind of light this area up. Now I want to say approximately a week ago, I started adding these little signposts here that kind of direct you as to which path is the appropriate path that you'll want to take. So as you can see, we've got the temple sign this way to go to our temple over here, and then we've got sort of a top of the mountain sign all the way back up here. But my point is that I kind of like these designs, and I want to translate them to the other side of the lake over here. Now I kind of worded that in a confusing way. I don't necessarily want signs everywhere, but I kind of want the same concept, that sort of style of posts on little corners here, maybe over here and over here and over here, just to give a little bit more light to the area. So I think something along the lines of that's gonna work for now. And then eventually later on, I might change the design a little bit, kind of depending on what we need. Maybe I'll even add little signs here, depending on what we'll sort of need a direction to, I guess. But having one there is nice. Let's build one right here. Yeah, that's a little bit nicer in the distance. It gives a good little cozy feeling, I think, at night, or even during the evening, or even during the morning. Yeah, that makes the place feel a little bit safer. And then I think another idea that might be a little bit nice to have is just to be able to have small little lanterns, kind of like, yeah, that's a nice design. Kind of have it like this so that it's not super obvious, but you still get that bit of light, and it's not like dragging your eyes away from a beautiful scene kind of like that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and add those, and I'll talk to you in just a sec. Now that's what I'm talking about. Don't mind my friends over there, they're just visiting. But you know, I think this is a good little addition to our infrastructure, along these paths at least. This is exactly what we needed. Now we've done all of this stuff this episode. We've made so much terraforming progress. I don't think I've ever done anything like this, besides maybe when we did our mountain range all the way down that way. But I'm glad I did this. You know, I don't really have a crazy open field where there's a whole ton of options and it already looks quite nice, so we have a good foundation as to what's to come. And you know what? I just realized it's spooky season, so this little shader pack that I have on is actually perfect. At least when it's morning and night, you know, it gets a little foggy. But Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I haven't said much, but besides to my Discord and besides to some live streams, we have some pretty, I guess, groundbreaking plans as for what's gonna go over here next episode. And it's big and it's pointy, and you can probably figure out what I'm talking about by the shape of my crosshair here. And if you can't, then I'll give you another. It's a mountain. Look, I can't get into too much detail about it, but what I can say is that I've been already material grinding, and there's a whole lot of stuff that I'm gonna have to do in preparation for next video. But with that being said, if you want what's behind me, go check out my Patreon. I have it linked down below. You can get a nice little world download for yourself, and you get the idea. But look how much we've managed to build this episode. It's already really coming together, and I'm really getting excited for next video already. But anyway, I wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.